recording? All right, welcome to our restorative respiratory challenge today. Okay, that's what we're going to work with. So I want you to start out with your bolster across the mat. You could use a round bolster on this one. It would be kind of awakening for your breathing, but you can play around with it, if you have a round bolster. But I'm going to use my firm flat bolster, which feels pretty firm for my ribs. I have a block in front of the bolster that's flat. You could play around with having it at the second setting if you want a little bit more stretch in your breathing muscles, but I'm going to stay with the real basic situation here. So I got a couple blankets folded at the back. I'm probably going to end up with one, hopefully, once my spine stretches out. So maybe start with two. Sandbag next to you, another block, and if you have a ball, and then the belt's going to go on. Okay, so I've got my belt. It's buckled up. And what you want to do is have your belt so it's in a small loop. Well, it just kind of depends on how it fits on you, really, right? And before you sit on your little Lego block, I want you to make sure that you're buckled up. And when you sit down in front of the bolster on your little Lego, it feels kind of small. I want you to have that so that the ribs get the full effect of the bolster support. So that's why you're sitting forward. Don't worry, you won't be on the little Lego for long. Okay, so the belt is on the top of my thighs, on the thigh lids. And as I walk my feet towards my seat, it's about as much as I can take with my hip flexors. I'm going to slowly recline back and stay with the knees bending, just so you don't overly extend, the spine to start. So I lower my head back to the blankets. Okay, and feel how that lower ribs, they kind of spread outwards. We'll get more of that, but in the beginning, start where it's pretty reasonable for your circulation. It's kind of easeful. I have my abdominals naturally moving with the breath. And then I'm going to get a hold of my sandbag, let it know it's time to get onto my body here. So it waits around all the time for this, I'm sure. So when I place the sand, I kind of like the idea of placing it right at the hip hinge, where my knees are creating that hip hinge pattern. And as I stretch the thighs down, it might be next to a wall, right? Most of us are setting up near some wall space. So it might be nice for you to feel a touch of the wall with your feet. And if you're not connected to the wall right now, it's fine. There's ups and downs of the wall because you start to extend more and then you need the wall to be farther away at some point. So it's okay to be back from the wall. So the sand is across the thighs. The belt, make sure it's pretty tight. You don't want to have it so loose that you don't feel that circulation demand into the upper legs, the thigh lids. And if at any time it becomes too much, which we could talk about what that is, but you don't like it, you can bend the legs and stay with the pose that way. All right, let's stretch our chest open, bring the arms out wide, and feel that width comes from within, right? Width comes within with the breath. So as I let my eyes rest back, whether the legs are extended or bended, integrate the motion of the inhale so the abdominals feel that lift and the result of the exhalation centering. So there's maybe more movement on the inhale, breathing in through the nose with the body feeling the breath. And then on that exhalation, letting go. Make the time for your body to really receive the position. And since there's quite a few props involved, you'll have to assess which props are helping you out. So most likely the bolster does the most. And the block isn't too bad, right? It gives you an extension of that spine contact to the tailbone and the sacrum, the final bone, right, of the spine. The base bone there is the sacrum. And if the blankets under your head seem too high, you can always slide one back. Might be a nice opportunity for you to try that. And then just feel if your weight of your brain, right, not so much your neck, can drop back, but the neck is a little bit up off the blanket. So we're not trying to push our neck down into the blanket. The reason why you would take one blanket off is so that you can work on that natural spine extension. Right, if you were to lay like a skeletal frame down at this part, if you're living and alive, right, this part would be extending and not just crumpling down. But if there is no life force, it would crumple down. So this is an opportunity. And if you need to put that blanket back in there and support that extension with the blanket, that's fine. So you decide. But let's be here for a few more moments with that exploration of the width of the chest, that free range of the inhale for about 3 to 4 counts, and emptying the lungs on the out breath for 5 to 6 counts. If that's possible. And just scanning where the circulation is in that upper back. Just visualize first the lift of the ribs. And this whole waist area has such a nice kind of lean stretch. You're leaning back into the upper bones. It's not quite a shoulder stand, but it's the ingredients to get there. Okay, so let's just continue that passage, that circulation passage back to strengthen the heart and the lungs. Okay, after a while, I think after just repetition, sometimes these shapes you feel better after class, and occasionally it feels good during. So I find right now this feels pretty helpful for my front space, and the back space is continuing to kind of feel that hydration, right, from that full length and the movement of the breath inside that expansion in the intercostals, right, the ribs. So I want you to slide the sand off. It's not going to go far, but it should be nearby your arm on the side. And then walk the feet in if they're not already walked in. And as the spine has its natural tilt, just simply loosen up the belt enough. Actually, let's keep it so it's around you right now. So I don't want you to loosen it too much, so it's easily going to be obtained again when we get upside down. And as I let my spine lengthen back, I definitely get rid of one blanket. There's no need for 2 under your head. If you seem to feel like I need 2, maybe one of your blankets is under your shoulders. I can't tell, but sometimes in person, I'll notice people start to push them under. So that's not anything you need at all. Now grasp onto the bolster. If you happen to have a round bolster under you, this is when you'll want to have a flat one for the next set. Walk the feet in as close as they'll go. And then as you push down through the balls of the feet, really work with the pelvis motion. So scoop the tailbone under, but let it be you slide the weight back to the shoulders when you do that. And then just ever so small of a move, not a big move. You're going to push the bolster down under the back of the pelvis, but it should be pretty high up. So it's going to support the lumbars, and then sink your pelvis into the bolster, really sink it in, and then bring the feet off of the floor. Maybe you still have your belt on. If you don't, it's okay. If you decide you don't want to use it. It's nice to work with the I guess, kind of the strict guidelines sometimes of a sequencing for respiratory. So I'm going to keep it on. I'm going to slide the belt so it's on the center of the thighs, and I'm going to tighten it down. And as I tighten the belt, okay, now I've lost the ability to use the sandbag, I just realized, but if you're capable of creating this one, you'll take your sand, okay? It might work, it might not for all of us with this belt. You might have to loosen it a little bit again. If you're falling off your bolster, remember you need to go farther downwards. And as I bring the knees in, I'll place the sand on the feet. I have to separate the feet, otherwise, right, the sand's just gonna fall off one side. And as I push up, it starts to bring some depth of concentration in my knees. There's a bit of a knee category here when you're not at the wall, okay, to strengthen around the knees. So I like to use the belt. Again, it's pretty much because that was what I was educated to use, but it is a nice way to find the grounding of the circuitry in the legs and that simple flow back to the heart, okay? Again, if you feel like you're not on the right spot on the bolster, you can always come down and move it a little bit higher. It almost never works to have the bolster too low. I've never seen somebody happy with that. They're usually looking like they're really upset and quite in pain maybe. So you want the bolster high enough into your back. You don't want it right under your heart, but it's not far from there. And as we position our tailbone to press down, feel the arms move into cactus position. And as you breathe in, you might find a few breaths where you really want to breathe with the mouth motion, because it's a breathful to get the movement back this far back to the heart. But it all works out easily. The legs are upside down, so all the blood moves back to the heart and the vital organs. So it's such a nourishing position. So we'll do this one twice today, once comfortably at the wall and once weight training like in this one. Okay, the belt's assuming that the belt creates more calm. It pulls around the skin and it's to cause a little bit more peace in the legs and keeps the alignment. So let's be here a few moments. Just let the tailbone rest into the bolster. And feel what that's like. I mean, navigating your tailbone upside down version is not a daily experience when you're going about your business, right? So the tailbone usually is in a different kind of platform of feeling in our daily existence. So feel how the abdominal basin, that's kind of nice, peaceful, serene feeling here. It's the opposite of prolapse. It's a nice conditioning for the organs, the pelvic floor. Maybe close your eyes. Any of these reclining shapes, you can always use an eye pillow. So breathing in through the nose, relaxing out through the nose, or if needed, the mouth. You know, with the shoulders, trying to be centered. I'm not trying to push more pressure into my cervical spine because I have my blanket under my head, but it might feel like it does some of that. So feel the shoulders press back. Use the larger muscles, especially since they're muscles in the back. Not to say your cervical vertebrae doesn't have any muscular connections, but we don't want to cause any, not any lead to damage, right? So I want you to work on the muscular movement. So that's really opening up the chest. Okay, and then just unbuckle, okay, placing the belt off to the side and bending legs, and take a sandbag and let's put that on the back of the leg. So think of it like as a hamstring sealer. Okay, hamstring sealer. All right, so I'm going to grasp onto the handles of my sandbag and just pull a little bit downwards. Let my feet find where they're comfortable, whether they lift, whether they relax down towards my seat. And I want you to let the knees go side to side for a moment so that you can start to bring some apparent weight into the hips here to stimulate, right, some strength. If that feels like too much work, you don't have to go far, side to side, just small movements. And you might end up dropping your sandbag if you go too quick or move too far over. Okay, so I want you to lose the sandbag, okay? Take a block or ball between the knees. Either is going to be fine for this. And the block, if you have that, you're going to have it at its most narrow setting, okay? Most narrow. And as the arms spread out, a little lower than the heart, knees going side to side, a little bit more extensive with the hip. So when I go side to side, I try to move my knees towards my arm. Okay, so it's a bit of a scoop. So feel that range from the back and the back muscles. Yeah, they get a little stimulation, right? So we're trying to work on creating that circulation through the back. And if any of these shapes are too much with the bolster under you, you can do any of them, any of these exercises without a bolster under the pelvis. You could use like a quarter fold blanket or a flat pillow if you want just a little bit of bulk under the hips if this is too much work. Okay. It does require a bit of strength in the abdominals to do this work. And if they're healing from or in any rehabilitation, maybe less height under the pelvis is better for some. So take a few more moments when you cross over from the center, feel even a few of them with your eyes closed so that you can find that sensation of stretch in the abdominals. So we're doing more than a few, huh? Okay, all right. So take a couple more, hopefully with your eyes closed, so you can feel that sensation loop from the paraspinals. Clearly the front kind of feels a little bit of pressure. All right, now as you bring the knees back in center, take the ball out or the block and alternate that right knee in towards the chest. You're just going to alternate the legs one at a time, of course, towards your chest. And for some reason, it might be better on one side to get the knee closer. So I want you to work on coordinating so that it's pretty balanced. Okay, so the leg kind of flaps a bit, right? The leg that draws in, the foot is going to flap down. Foot flapping. So feel the extended leg, the hip flexor, and that reach. And then take a moment, let both legs stretch down. So you're still with the bolster. Not making it an event like you're pushing through your feet, but just feel the legs in that reach. And then I want you to take your belt, let the left leg stay extending. This is more spine extension, hip flexor extending. Slide the right foot in, and then as you pull the muscles in the back to bring the knee in, you'll take your belt. If it requires you to pull the knee in with both hands to get that assistance, that length in the back, you can work with that. But I tend to have to turn my foot in a little bit to get the right leg as it reaches up with the belt under the ball of the foot. And give yourself a moment here, sand free, to pull with both hands and sense the calf. It's not just a hamstring event, but the calf load. And what's interesting is if I was, standing upright with my feet down and I somehow got a belt under my foot and was pulling, I really won't have the same calf experience. You might have a little bit of it if you were sitting and pulling your foot, but There's nothing like it this direction, or if you're in a standing pose, stretching. I think it's even better right here. So feeling if the left leg needs to bend, if that's better for your back, that's certainly a good option. Yeah, I kind of like the leg extending, but then I feel a little bit more kind of hip concentrate when the left foot is on the floor, the bottom of the foot. Up to you. Okay, now take the belt together with the right hand, moving the right leg out. Okay, see if you can keep the belt on the foot. If the left leg is straight down, you could keep it down and you could bend the knee. I kind of like both of them for different reasons, but if I extend the left leg down, I have to work a little harder to keep my back comfortable. Trying to spread the ribs with the breath. Okay, now take the right leg, cross it to the left for a few moments. So I'm going to hold the belt with the left hand now, and the right elbow is going to just jut out to the side. Relax the right hand open, and then let your head roll to the right. Breathing. Now just experience the motion when the leg is crossed over. It's kind of a small range in some ways, right, with your glutes on the right side. So let's take this, so we bend the right knee. You could keep your belt on your foot. This is kind of interesting. Slide the left foot in, bottom of the foot down, take figure four pose. You could keep a hold of the belt, kind of pull a little bit, flex the foot. I like this with or without the belt. I haven't decided which I prefer. The only reason I'm keeping it on is because I know I'm going to use it on the next leg. So you can let go of it and just leave it there to get a hold of later. But I want to work with the right knee pointed out with the hinge, right, from my hip to my knee joint to my ankle joint, and kind of elaborate on the feeling of that left foot centering, right? You could keep it attached. Obviously it's attached to the whole leg, but you might feel what it's like if you turn the foot in, if you try to keep it as parallel and firm. Okay, so just visualize this idea of the hips getting a little bit higher. Right? It would take a lot of work, right, for your hip joints, the muscles more so, I guess, not the joints, to get the hips to actually lift up, right? You have to use this whole left leg, the left hip priority to lift up the hip. So take a moment where you're trying to scoop the tailbone under and lengthen in this left front thigh. You know, I'm not going to get my hips off the bolster, but we can still activate those muscles. Okay, the right inner thigh is probably not too excited about it, or it is excited. You can feel it. Try to flex through your right foot. You could pull with the belt. It's not going to necessarily change a thing, but okay. Now the right inner thigh is a little bit more heat right now. So I'm going to let the tailbone rest into the bolster so the glute muscles rest. And then right knee points up, get the belt to the foot, and you're going to lift the left foot up into the belt, both feet straight up, and push them out into a wide stance. And let the hands really pull firm. Okay? So let this be pretty easy peasy. You just let the feet kind of step out into the belt as comfortably as the leg muscles will respond. Knees can bend, legs can straighten, you choose. Okay, now as you pull, always a good idea to rest your eyes in the inversions. Okay, now feel the feet push up as high as they'll go, and then slide the feet together, hands pulling the belt down so they do go together. And then the right leg lowers down, no sand needed. So the right foot centers down, and I take the belt with the left hand. I want you to move the leg out to that left side before we focus on the hamstring on this one. So as my foot goes into your screen, you could let the right leg elongate down. And so that front thigh, right, the whole psoas, deeper connection into the lumbar spine. Okay, you can put a hand onto the front hip bone, just kind of prioritize that you don't fall over, or you don't lean too far over. Okay, this is a good one to try to let the leg extend below you. And then as you move the left leg back up, hold on with both hands. Get a hold of your belt, get a hold of it all. And as you pull, move the belt to a spot on the bottom of your foot that feels interesting. Okay, so for you, it might be high up, it might be right at the arch. This is often taught with the belt strictly at the heel. I like to be closer to the ball of the foot. And it might be a little bit of a different exact placement than the other side because I'm going for feeling in the back of the lower leg. Okay, I've got to kind of feel where the spot of the belt feels like the best circulation in the leg. And when I can't get the leg to go farther back, that's okay. This is it. This is my range to get the calf to stretch. If I was to take the leg farther back, I kind of lose the calf stretch for me. So it is up to you. And your right leg can bend with the bottom of the foot down. If you've got that block still below, it's okay. Actually, you could even push the block down and put your foot on it, I suppose, but I always kind of fumble with that and see if it would be useful. Sorry. Okay, so pull, extend the right leg, and then take the belt together, crossing the left leg to the right. Feel when you cross over, sometimes the connection from the foot to the knee is pretty spicy, and then it really leaps and bounds right into the hip. So bending the left knee might be very helpful. You could roll a little bit into the right hip. Okay. Yeah, what's helpful about these, I sometimes think the online is where I can work on quite the specific, advancing the circulation and the poses, kind of clarify what we're doing. So if it's too much stuff, you can, maybe shift your volume if it's a lot of extra and just focus on the shapes. That's okay. Okay, now this left outer hip feels most of the circulation here, and we don't want to dull that entirely. So getting all that blood flow into the hip, right? These areas that might be a little dormant that need the circulation, kind of stimulate the stretch reflex and those soft tissues. And then as I bend the left knee, I want to find there's resistance, clearly when I bend against holding on with the belt. And then as I shift the left knee back in towards center, I'll slide my right bottom foot on the ground, connect my left ankle to the right knee. I suppose the second side, having the belt on, is not as important, but it might be intriguing for some of us. Okay, I feel a really strong connection when I hold onto the belt all the way up into the upper thigh, the hip, kind of the hip lid. The hip lid is boiling over here. So you could slide the belt off and go, okay, I still feel that. It's a little less, but it's a little more comfortable. So what's interesting is the knee that's holding onto the foot. That moves a little bit out. Your foot can still be parallel. Kind of changes the circulation here in the left hip. If I keep it centered, I can move a little bit side to side. Okay, take a few more moments here in figure 4 with the legs down. Belt goes off to the side when you're ready. Okay, we're going to work with this left hip, kind of motion into this hip for side sage pose. So what I want you to do is notice how the leg positioning, just even close your eyes and feel the shape of the left connection into the hip joint. It's your sensation to work with. So this isn't going to change even when we're leaning into it. So just take the foot off of the knee. If you need to scoop your knees to your chest, that's fine. If you need kind of a seal the deal position before you come out of this inverted pattern, it's fine. But I want you to try to let the knees switch side to side. And we're going to get a lot of relief here when we get to our side stretch. So if I feel my knees go one side and I go, oh, it feels so good on my back, I'm going to give that time and then roll to a side. And when you roll to the side, you're going to kind of move down on the bolster. And if you've got a block stuck here, just put it up overhead to the other blanket. And then we'll get set up on side sage. And if you're kind of tired from the last little part of the sequence and you need to do something a little bit more calming, you could do sleeping sage, okay? So let me do a quick show of that. So the side sage will have the two blankets stacked up like so. They're stacked up at the back of your mat, so away from the wall. You could do this one with the wall at your hand at the wall too. And then the block overhead. Now, if I decide this one is going to be too much, just here's your option out of that. You could take sleeping sage like this. So you could hug your bolster and rest into it. That's an option. Okay. So here we go into side sage. I've got my bolster horizontal. I've got a ball, or if you don't have a ball, I think what might be better on this one would probably be like a wadded up blanket. The block works okay. And some people don't use anything on this. Probably at least 30% of people who do this pose don't like to use anything on the inside of the knee. But my option for me is the ball on the inside of the right knee. And then I'm going to lean, get my sand. Very important to have sand. And then I'll place the sand. I like it to be across my hip because I know it won't fall over if I have it lengthwise on the side. But we're talented using our sandbag, so sand on how you like to. All right, so take a hold of the ribs on the bolster. Remember, you can decide to go a little bit down to the left. You can decide to coordinate that rotation. You can do a little bit of side and rotation. And if the arm goes overhead, it touches to something, right? Whether it's a block, you could go kitty corner with the block, or the arm is down by the side, or on the bolster, or on the blanket. But let's start to come into the side stretch where we have the arm that's between the bolster and the blanket stretched straight between. That arm doesn't have to do anything, does it? The arm that reaches overhead, actually that reach, for me, makes it more peaceful in my neck when I'm starting to engage. And my scapula is interesting if my arm goes overhead, how it changes the flow in my neck. Okay, so everyone has to kind of find what is the right position. Do I turn my head so I really kind of press my ear down? And then as you come into it, I recommend that you let your eyes close and you can still make shifts, right, with the structure, even with your eyes closed. So you can really sense, do I need the ball? Do I need it higher up on the inside of the right thigh? I can use my left foot to move the ball around. All it does is go around and around. And then as you rest the brain, and it's a pretty good amount of weight, right? The brain, the whole skull. So just feeling the weight of it rest down, breathing. Great. Breathing through the nose. Notice where you feel weight. And if you feel it in the hip bones, not only just the weight down, leaning into the floor, but the weight that's on the hip bone. So it's a nice weight bearing kind of cross training, right? We have the sand on, and then we have the body centering down to the ground. So what's above, right, pushes into the bones. Now we've done quite a bit of simply lying on props, right? Using the props, pulling a little bit with props with the belt, but quite a bit of pushing and resting into the shape, supported shapes. So let's get a feeling here where we have that opportunity for the right hand to lower down to the blanket or the bolster first. And then you might roll onto the back of your head and slide the sand away. Okay, so you've got the kind of this 360-degree motion with your, just the response of the breath inside. So I try to turn one direction and the other, so I get kind of a full twist. And as I come around, I want to have you have an option, right? If you decide you want to lie back on the bolster like this, right? If you want to lie back in cobbler's pose, this might be an option for you. Put your blocks under the legs, or have the legs straight down. I always want to give an option that's relaxing, okay? Another option would be hands on the ground between the bolster and the blanket. So I just place them about shoulder distance apart. Stretch out through the fingers, have the knees with that separation that allows you to coordinate cat-cow. So chin towards chest, round the back. Inhale, arch through the spine. Chest is forward. Exhale, round the back. Chin, but also the chest moves towards the core. Okay, let's take a variation on up dog for a moment. Bring the hands so they are a little wider on your mat. Feet maybe touch the wall. And then the hips move down on top of the bolster that's across, okay? Yeah, I actually kind of like my feet pushing into the wall. I don't have as much knee pressure. I can just lift my knees up. But noticing how the length is in the front, right? That's pretty obvious. Okay, come back to hands, knees, table, and then round the back. If it's too much on your wrists, just push the bolster a little bit forward. Put your elbows on it, hands touching, and round the back. That sometimes works great. Okay, inhale, arch the spine, back through cow. And exhale, round the back, last one. Okay, hands pressing down and lift up into downward dog. Feel the balls of the feet press down. Feel the heels stretch towards the ground and extend in the arms. Yeah, if you have resistance of a bolster next to your arms, it can only add to the features of, right, the sensation here. So, and for me, it's not like an enjoyable sensation, it's weight bearing sensation. So I'm kind of pushing into that resistance. But that's what makes it, our practice, helpful for the bones, is just the resistance that we work with. So create that. If it's a hamstring event, bend the knees. Let the hips still have that lift. You don't have to take a somersault here. All right, so feel that spread of the shoulders. And as you start to guide your head towards the hands and then the knees down, inhale, arch the spine. And then come back to that complete center and then take to the other side sage. Now, again, if you were doing sleeping sage or you did it for a few moments, you got your bolster like this, tip it up on top of the short end of it on the blankets, hug your bolster, option one. And then the main course here is the side sage. Now, if you have your block overhead, I'd put it a little bit over to the left if you're looking back. and use a block or ball on the inside of the left leg. And when you lean in, the bolster tends to kind of shift on this one. It's like you have to kind of get your torso across it, all those ribs, right? Your set of ribs. And then as you add onto your set of ribs on the other side of them, you might go, well, I need my blankets closer. You can kind of play around with it. You might even want your top blanket folded one more time. So if you happen to get into this and maybe the second side, your neck wants that support. And if you tend to sleep on one side, of course, we all have our habits. This will come into an obvious flexibility in our necks here. So you choose. I like to have my blanket low, but if I can't relax, then I need it higher, okay? So the left hand reaches either overhead, on the blanket, on the bolster, or on your side. Okay, if it's not quite as good of a stretch on this side, then take some time to kind of explore. Maybe it's the breathing, maybe it's the blankets are too low, right? If I bring it up, my blanket height, my neck is a little bit more at peace, and I feel a satisfying stretch of my neck. It's important to know how to use the props to support you and not take away from the sensation, not dull it too much. So you might need more, you might need less. And the block overhead is completely an option. It's not for everybody. Okay, relax the glutes so the buttocks aren't pulling or doing much of anything, but the waist is getting that sensation blend of in and out breath. You know, if it gets any bit of shakiness, that sometimes happens with the lower arm, right connected to the shoulder joint. See if you can settle the body weight. And if you need to make a change or movement, go for it. Take a couple more cycles of breath. Okay, now, as we transition, just notice how the waist is invited to elongate, right? It's an extension as well. It's an arch. Okay, it's not a flexing. There's no rounding here going on. There's a little rounding in the hip, but in this area, so when we come out of this one, we're gonna shift our weight to the right, I'm assuming, unless you're on the other side. And when you shift over, this time, let's just place our blankets behind us so that you pull them next to your bolster, right next to it. Take any block behind you in. And then let's sit up on the bolster. And let's place the left leg into bending. It's a funny way to explain it, but there we go. Okay, bend the leg, and if the thigh stretches down, so from my hip point, stretching down to my knee, I am trying to move my left foot close to the right thigh. And once I do that, this is the option. You might use a ball under the left knee, like you just feel like you can't quite sit up, right? The ball will kind of bring you a little bit of bounce, okay? It's not for everybody, right? Some of us are going to feel like, I guess that we just accomplished a little bit differently without the ball. And it's kind of a coordination in your back muscles. This definitely makes it easier if I use the ball, but that's okay. All right. let's take a belt, and also let's add a block, just in case you want to use something besides a belt. So I've got my block. And again, if you don't have a ball and you need something under the knee, you could use a towel, an extra blanket. You could take one from behind you. So it's kind of a cushioning surface versus a block. But I'll have the block besides the right leg, so it's not under any leg. And then I'll use my belt. This is a nice delivery method for the stretch. So I have my seat position, trying to get as centered as I can, more weight in my left leg with the bent leg. But as I get the belt under the right foot, I'll bend the knee to scoop up my right foot with the belt. And you're going to hold on to it with the right hand and see if you can just center the chest. Okay, and all these coordinated patterns with the bending this, the weight on this. And there's a lot to kind of take into the posture. So holding onto the belt, maybe close your eyes and kind of find that vine of the spine, right? You've got the nice spine vine in its arch, but also the vine of the spine is in the front of you too, right? It's right behind the heart. Okay. So feel the firm pull with the right hand. And then I want you to use the left hand to actually get a hold of the belt that's over there on the right side so you can pull it to the center and then lean to your right side with your waist and your right hand holding onto the belt and pull. Okay? So if you're not sure, we'll kind of do a little bit of a silly version of it, but I'll be backwards for you. But you're going to have when your leg is out to that side, I want you to pull. So much for the ball. But you're pulling, so you're leaning. And sometimes the belt hold is helpful, so I kind of pull across and grab onto the belt and lean. But here's the thing I like sometimes is not the belt, but the block besides my leg. So if it's yanking on your knee too much, even if it's on the foot, you can always place the block very close to where your elbow lands, high up. And instead of using the belt, let your elbow be on the block and then stretch your left arm overhead. Over the side of your face and twist to the left. Okay, so that's I like the belt sometimes. This is a really good one for our back care. It's good back care work. Okay, side bends or back care. I don't think I've ever heard of side care. I guess that's one thing I haven't heard in yoga. Are you working on your side care? It's back care poses. So arm is up or back or behind you, it's up to you. But featuring that low waistline area, that sense of kind of pulling. I know it shortens all day long because of our I don't think it's a habit, but we stand on our feet and we sit on our rear and it shortens all day long. Right? The psoas shortens by 3 inches when you sit. So it's like any of the side stretching. If it's overdoing it, let the hand rest behind your back. Let your head turn to your right leg. Hold the belt or let go and put your elbow on the block. Okay. All right, let's come up. Loosen up your grip. Bring your right hand to the left knee. Bring the left arm behind you. I would place the hand, the front of the hand right at the top. So I generally bend through my hand and kind of squeeze, not a tight fist, and then just press into my very lower back area, almost to the final bone of my spine, and just work on lifting the chest from there. Yeah. You can tilt your ear to the shoulder, either direction, or not. Let your eyes center in. Feel the spine in its nice spiral spine. And can you breathe? Nice. Okay, now as you ease up on the grip with the right hand, you want to feel like you can work with lifting your heart up, 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 and then slide the hand away from the knee, turn forward, And let's take any belt we have off of our foot. And we're going to stretch the torso now. So we've had a little bit of the side twist, pretty easy twist work. But when you come down to your pigeon pose, you're going to guide your left knee off of the ball. So if you've got a ball, it has to go away. And you're going to stretch the right leg back behind you. So it's a left leg forward pigeon. So right leg stretches back. And as I aim for the back of my mat, my knee is on a blanket and my hands stretch forward. And I try to create this kind of success in my spine from the side stretch to the twist and now into the back bend, right? So your back bend could be kind of dull, right? You could lower the elbows down. This might feel better. You can also put your forehead like on a block. Some people like that. It would be nice if I was closer to the wall. I could put my block on the edge and my head could touch there, but I don't think it's going to happen. But the elbows could be firm ground or on blocks. So if you decide that you want a little bit more spine extension, you would put your elbows on the tube, one on each block. It's more arch. And I'm good with a forward bend. We don't do a lot of that in these grips. We don't do a lot of rounding things, for a reason, for our back strengthening and chest and breathing strength. But that's interesting. So adding a little bit is probably a nice medley for your circulation. They're a little more calming. Okay. Now, if you're bulking up in the shoulders, you feel a lot of pressure, you might bring the palms together or interlace your fingers. Yep, the pigeon in contemplation here. Contemplative pigeon. The back leg heavy. Nice to have that pull across the hip. If you bend the back leg and lift the foot up, it's going to pull on the inner thigh a bit. And maybe many other spots, but you get to choose. Ribs move with the breath. You can feel a little bit of a cat pose in the spine. So now feel where that natural arch is. Just lightly kind of tease the arch of the spine. When you come up with the hands pushing, likely a little more left leg will kind of fire up right in the inner thigh. It kind of adds all into this area that we need to get some more motion even. So as you take the right leg and shift it back forward, kind of crawl out of your pigeon pose, bring the soles of the feet together in cobbler, and you choose. You can use blocks under the knees. You can reach down to the ankles. One nice thing about just kind of going just pure without many props, just something to sit on, you might find that the cross fibers between the lumbar region outwards can be kind of dull. So I sometimes like to push down to the upper thigh and just lift up with the chest, kind of let the chest rise, and then go forward into that cobbler's forward fold. So the feet could scoot forward, right? You could slide them to more of a diamond shape, but the classic cobblers, the feet are really close in. Like they're close towards your bolster as you can make it. Okay, and if you've got blocks, you place them under the legs. If you've got sand, you place it across the feet. Okay, it's worth it to have that load. And the soles of the feet might kind of just peel open a little bit. Not literally, your soles are not going to peel, but I don't know, unless you got a peel on your foot or something. Okay, so I like to play with the differences. Like I could put my hands to the thighs. The blocks make it so that I can do this. Kind of holds my leg bones up. Yeah, the fun thing about restoratives with all the props is you are kind of taking each place apart and kind of adding circulation, like right now, keep the inner thigh, kind of manipulate the circulation on just these parts, and then it weaves into the back. It's good stuff. Lots of self-care. So come on up, take the sand, if you've got it on your feet, over to your right thigh, and let the left leg extend. And if you need to kind of shift a little side to side because the sitting bones don't feel quite sat on. Okay. All right, belt and block to the side of that left leg. I got my block up. You might see a different viewpoint on this side because the leg is towards you. And then as you scoop up, you could have your belt in a loop and just have a little loop under your foot. That might be even nicer, but I'm gonna keep it kind of simple. So just so you can see, when I hold on to the belt, I start with the center because I get ahead of myself on this one. Okay, and I pull. So when I pull with this left arm, my left side of my torso up into my kind of the rib heads. Okay, the base of the sternum is where we're going to go next with some work. So just kind of notice this base of the sternum where the ribs intersect at the bottom, and then bend the left elbow and right. You kind of tweak the position. You walk your left hand towards the foot, and you bring the elbow on top of the knee or the inside, not on the outside. However, if you use the block instead, it's on the outside of the leg, and the elbow lowers down. But the work ahead is either holding the belt or elbow on the block, and the right arm either lifting. That's hurtful for your shoulder. Keep it behind you. But work with that immersion of turning the chest open and feeling the circulation in the front and side pathway of the body. And maybe you comb through the air a little bit with your right hand so that you can weave through the ribs a bit. Take another couple breaths through the nose. Right, let the ribs expand, right? Because they're certainly, the muscles between them are sponge-like, right? The intercostals, right? You inflate and create a little more elasticity in the ribs. Okay, right arm reaches back and then let go of the belt, the block, bring the left hand to the right knee and counterpose, twisting. Okay, feel a little bit of that lift of the chest. Try to flex through the left foot so it doesn't roll the knee in, right? If the foot can stay reaching. Okay. Now with that left hand, releasing its grip on the knee, you'll obviously kind of come back to normality here with the torso. So when we come back center, we want to slide the sand. If you've got a ball or anything under the knee, you're going to take that away. And this time, as I stretch back the left leg, you might have to really perk up the knee and then kind of feel how you roll around in the hip to get to that pigeon pose. So small movements are helpful, not whip the leg back, so that you can coordinate that reach from the thigh lid, back through the hip flexor and in the psoas. So I try to work on letting the hands push down and feel what pushes and what arches. And then you can lower your elbows to the ground. This might be the best thing, right? Then you lower down. You can bring the palms together. Contemplative pigeon. You can also have the palms down, and I would walk them in though if you were in this version, so that the back is supported. But if I go too far forward here with the hands, it's kind of nagging my back. So right, we're doing a lot of back kind of coordinating into back strength today. So, but I feel pretty back strong with some of this work. So I haven't had any bad experiences with it thus far. But work with that just a reasonable amount of pressure down into your right hip. It's only what your bones allow, right? And if they're resisting, and this is a lot for you, you can put like you can use your ball under your right buttock, truly. You could use a towel if it's like, especially if you feel like it's numbing, it's tingling. That's definitely a reason to kind of get out of the pose, huh? Okay, feeling that sliding forward, breathe. And now as we kind of shift our bones down into the right hip, you're near a wall, I hope. Some of us are close to a wall. So we're going to be shifting our hands back to push down, and then carefully wade into the right sitting space, and then bring the left knee forward, and you're going to turn so that you're turning so your feet are to the wall. And let's reset things here. So I want you to move your bolster off of your mat and get a blanket. And this, if it feels like this is overdoing comfort, then you can always go blanket free, okay? But I'm going to take a blanket so it's in a, it's unfolded, so I don't have a horizontal fold here. I just put the blanket down square, right? And I'm going to place this other blanket off to the side. And here's where it gets interesting. So if you don't have a ball, these are 7-inch therapy balls, right? They're kind of like, they're sensory balls. They're play balls too for kids. So you can kind of use all kinds of them if you don't have exactly one of these. You could probably use like a Nerf football for this one too. But you're going to lower down, and it looks like you got a feeling of your feet to the wall. But what I want you to do is take the ball or the wadded up blanket. You're going to place it at the base of the sternum, which is the xiphoid process, right? If you've ever done CPR, right, this is what you find before you go up for compression. So you're at the base of the sternum, which is sword-like bone, right? It's definitely, and we don't like pushing into it. You wouldn't want to be pushing deep in it. We're going to put the ball, and you're going to lower down so that the ball is supporting that length of your torso. Okay, so a vision of it when you're on the ball, right? You have it at the base of the sternum, so it's above the belly button, right? It's not this low. You could do belly massage work though with these balls, they're really good. But I place it here, and then I'm in Sphinx pose, and the chest is lifting. Okay, this is my new favorite thing. All right, so elbows down. Again, if you're too comfortable with all this blanketing, you can go without it. But push a little bit into the wall. Whew, getting some strength here in the core and the organs. Okay. The belly organs, the organs. Okay. Forearms pressing down. Now feel if you can create that cat pose. So you're going to bring your chin towards your chest and create traction in the upper abdominals. And as you feel I like to feel like my belly pulls in a little bit on this one, to be honest, because it feels like I'm doing a nice stretch for the abdominals. And then when I inhale, I roll a little bit on the ball, and I move my chin forward. That's it. I don't move it any farther than forward. And then round back. So you're tracking through the spine. Kind of like bridge pose, but on the base of the sternum. You're not rolling on the spine, you're on the front of the spine. Okay, now take a couple more. If you're not so interested in this variation, just simply center in Sphinx pose, right? You can just be here for a few more moments. Breathe. Right, even if you wad up a blanket, it still is helpful here. I mean, you could use like a paper towel roll, or actually a toilet paper roll will work out really good on this one, huh? I didn't think of that one. I know you're like, well, maybe I'll try that with the ball. If I have one, I'll use it. Okay. So now I want you to try this one. You'll slide the hands back, and then you'll lift up. We all know this variation of up dog. Come back to table, And then as you shift your knees in, take a block on each side of your hands. Ball wants to get in the way. And bring the blocks in on the sides of your mat and step the right, well, actually we'll go left foot so you can see. So I've got my ball. I'm gonna step my left foot forward and I'm gonna slide, roll the ball down just above my knee. I'm actually gonna lift my knee up and then lower back on the ball. So I can get a little bit of pressure into my quad and elongate my hip flexors on that side. Lift up the chest a little bit. Breathe. You don't have to charge with the left knee, but you might find that's interesting. Tailbone drawing under. You gotta breathe. It's your only help on this one, huh? Okay. Okay, now make the shift here. So let's take a simple up dog in between. Just move the ball off your mat. Move your blocks aside, palms down, and then stretch the hips downwards, but also down and forward to lengthen the torso. In breath. Okay, now come back and center, step the right foot forward, use your blocks, you might need them, and then slide the ball. Can't get that word out, but it's roll the ball, huh? Back to the left thigh, and you might notice it's different in each leg, right? It's a little different sensation track. So do good about getting that ball so it's actually pushing and you're pushing into it to lengthen. Oh, quads. All right, so my left foot is pushing a little bit into the wall. I'm not overdoing it. I'm just keeping that delivery simply balanced. But you might notice the lead of the circulation into the inner thigh is pretty intense. So breathing, take a few more moments with that length. Good work. Okay. All right. All this boring stuff will come together in a good way. So when you come back, I want you to move the ball off to the side, and then we'll guide the right leg back, blocks to the side. Take your blanket and place it all the way to the back of your mat so it's that low, it's that flat, it's not bulked up. Turn so that your bolster is at the base of the wall, firmly pushed, and your feet are on top of it, and you'll lower back. And this time, I want you to let your head rest on your blanket. If you think this is too low for you and need it higher, go ahead and fold it one more. I'm going to try to work with it because it is better for my neck to have less of this bulk, and then I have to work on that spine extension. Okay, ball, if you've got it, under the left buttock. If you don't, here's what you go with. You let the hips go side to side if you've got the ball, massaging the glutes on the left side. Now, if you don't have a ball, feet are as wide as they can be on the bolster, and the knees are going to swish side to side. And it's good. It's good. You let the knees windshield wiper, but you also have to really trust leading into the whole surface of the glute. Okay, so yeah, so don't be bashful about letting your glutes kind of really move side to side if you have the ball or no ball. You gotta really let your hips shift so it's like you're wagging your tail. And if you lift a foot up and kind of push into the ball, that's fine. It could be either foot actually. And then move the ball to the other side. Get as much movement across the circulation in the glutes. Okay, press into the ball, move as well as pressure. Both of them are important for massaging into those tissues, getting some more circulation and hydration, but it's a stretch reflex that's occurring when you push into the ball. And that soft tissue to create some motion. Motion is lotion. Okay. All All right, now let's take a full motion into just a bridge pose. So we're going to lift up the hips. You don't need to use any blocks, but feel the feet push into the bolster. Stretch your arms overhead. And feel that passage of circulation up into your shoulders. Okay, and then elongate the spine. Let the arms stay overhead if possible, so you can bridge that connection. It's a bridge pose. Down from the blades, and then carefully through the vine of the spine. Okay, it's vinyl. It's vinyl spinal. Okay, so now we're going to take a full crossover. So if you've got clutter in your side yard, like belts and things, I want you to have the side of your mat on the right to be clear, except for a bolster. So this is one where you likely have to fold your blanket one more time. And take the bolster to the right side of your mat, kick it over, let the right leg bend and shift to the right as the left leg lifts up onto the bolster on the right side. So the back has this nice kind of scoop and it really hugs into these organs, right? So I like to use a ball on the sacrum. If you don't have a ball, it's probably okay just to not put anything there. And then add your sand. Most importantly, let's get a good couple minutes on this one. So I want you to put the sand across the hip or lower if that's better. You might play with, does it go straight down? Yeah. And feeling where the circulation is kind of heaped, right? There's like a circulation heap in your hip. So I like to pull the sand a little to the right. And then or I'm actually pulling and pushing it a little bit. It's a push and pull. And then once I have it centered on my leg, my lateral part, I let the left arm open. And then I just kind of obey the movement of breath, right? It's going to spread. It's going to help, right, with clearing out, cleansing properties of breathing. And just let your head find where it's comfortable, whether you roll your head to the left or you keep it straight in center. Maybe have an eye pillow. These last few poses you might like to use an eye pillow for. Even this one. Just feel where the arch is moving inwards, the spine arch. And that expansive breath helps hold that spine kind of vitality. So just spreading the ribs with the breath. Feel the movement chamber of the ribs. Okay, now as we slide the sand off of this left thigh, before you shift to that second side, do what's in between the two that works for you. It might be move the ball. Maybe you want to massage the glutes again. Maybe you want to put the ball under the rear and massage. Maybe you bring the knees to your chest for a moment, just gently hugging the knees in. But only for a moment, right? You don't want to shock the sacrum because it's going back to that arch again. So the bolster moves to the left. I shift my bones a little bit to the right side of my mat, and then I cross the right leg over. So that crossover is just it's a coordination, right, of your abdominals and your lower back. So if I add my ball to the low spine, that's kind of a nice balancing anchor, but some people don't prefer it at all. So it's okay either way. But sand could be helpful, right? And we're kind of using that sand pressure to guide and really try to hydrate, right, the fascia here with that circulation boost. It's kind of stuck together, these side lateral rotators. They're sticky, right? They're really stuck and it adheres together. So we're trying to get some successful angle with the leg crossing over. And it's kind of nice to do this on your own, right? You can lead the way with how you help circulate it all by yourself. I mean, you're the one that kind of possesses that power. So when you turn your head, maybe you have a bigger arch on the second side and you can do more. Maybe this chest side is more open, or the shoulder is different, right? So you kind of find the differences and the benefit to the second side, whether the arm is up or it's low. I find if my arm's a little lower for right now, not too high up, I don't want to feel any tingling in my arm. I definitely don't want my arm to fall asleep. Okay, it's not a healthful thing. It means you've lost blood circulation right in that area. The circulation is gone. So feel where there is the obvious choice of shoulder back, breathing in, and emptying out. You know, noticing how the ribs move expansively, but when we get to our last pose here, the circulation really does kind of flood the whole front line into the heart. So as I move the ball in the sand, I'm going to roll left and just simply push into my arms and then use the bolster positioning next to the wall right at the base, all the way at the base, tucked into the wall. So, well, don't tuck it under the wall. Take a seat on your bolster. Get your rear, truly your seat as close to the wall as you can. Even if you don't have this vacant space behind you, you want to let the knees touch and bend, and then you're on one side of the bolster, and then you try to roll. See, I sometimes roll to the other side too. So I'm going to go get a hold of my bolster, but still try to keep it next to the wall as I guide my hips closer to the wall and move my blanket in. Who knows, you might feel like if you have your blanket closer to your base of your neck, you can get a little bit more rhythm of movement through the spine. But unless you spend a lot of time upside down, that's a whole different, different proprioception, right, being upside down. So it takes time to figure out how to get your spine in its upside down wave. All right, legs up the wall, sand. Grab a hold of your sandbag, and now trying to figure out how to get it up there. All right, so likely you've got to bend the knees and guide the sand to the soles. And as you lift up your soles, if you decide you don't want sand there, you could put on your ribs or across the belly. If you have an eye pillow, place it across here, right below the forehead, kind of seal, resting the brain back. It's a little bit of a brain seal, I suppose, the eye pillows. And the arms can be either in cactus position. You could also place the arms downwards. But enjoy the circulation event here of the day, right? This is the optimal circulation for your heart health, for your vascular system. And it's certainly strengthening, right, the digestive system, right, all the way up into to the esophagus, right? You've got all these strengthening patterns because you're upside down. You don't have prolapse, so You might find a little bit of a tug at the tissues when you're breathing. Kind of the hardiness of the resistance the whole time. It's a resistance exercise here for the diaphragm. Just fall into receiving your breath and relaxing on the out breath. Take a few moments. Breathing through the nose. Feeling that inner chamber and the vibration in the ribs with the breath. It doesn't move just out, it also moves down to the belly and lifts. And once the feet maybe have a little tingling sensation, kind of scattered in the lower leg parts, this is an indication, right? You might want to shift out. If you want to continue the legs up, if you're doing this for another time, because that's so healthy, you could always be without the sand, and you could put like a belt around the ankles and let the feet go wider. That's really nice to do, and unlikely you're going to get the tingling as much. But you can kind of continue that. Shift the feet off the wall, bend the knees, and then move the sand, either drop it overhead or place it to the side. And you could take a cobbler's pose for a mini moment here, just pushing against the inner leg close to the knee. This is really a great one for circulation, not pushing my knees, but circulation on the leg pits, the groins, right? Reversing that gravitational pull back to the organs. A lot of heat right into this lower basin once the knees scoop in, right? Comes back to the pelvic floor. And rock side to side, or just roll to one side. And try to get your neck to reach a little bit when you roll. It's like natural kind of tummy time. Your little neck with a little neck reach just to get around to sitting. And then sitting with your hips lifted and pushed back to the wall. And find that gravitational lift of the head, and let your hands rest into your thighs. Get a little bit of pressure into the palms, and then bring that heated pressure to the hands together at the basin of the heart. And let's unite our breath to close this practice. Take a deep breath in, and with exhalations, bowing into that space behind your heart. In gratitude